When you stop waiting for approval, you finally realize that most people were never qualified to judge your life in the first place, yet you handed them that power without question. The moment you stop seeking approval, you feel a strange freedom, because you are no longer living according to other people, as expectations that were never designed for your happiness. When approval no longer controls you, your decisions become clearer, stronger, and more honest, because they finally come from who you are, not who you're trying to impress. The day you stop waiting for validation is the day you understand that confidence is built internally, not handed out by people who barely understand your journey. When you stop needing approval, silence from others no longer feels like rejection, but like space for you to grow without interference. You begin to move differently when you stop waiting for approval, because your steps are guided by purpose instead of fear of being misunderstood. When approval is no longer your goal, you stop shrinking yourself just to make other people comfortable with your existence. The most powerful shift happens when you realize that people's opinions change, but the consequences of ignoring your true self stay with you forever. When you stop waiting for approval, you start respecting your own voice, even when it shakes, because at least it is honest. Freedom begins the moment you understand that no amount of approval will ever replace self. When you stop seeking permission to be yourself, you discover that the life you wanted was always waiting on the other side of courage. Approval loses its grip when you realize that most people judge from their fears, not from facts. When you stop waiting for approval, you stop explaining yourself to people who were never listening anyway. The strongest people are not those who are praised the most, but those who learn to stand alone without applause. When approval no longer defines you, rejection stops feeling personal and starts feeling like You grow faster when you stop waiting for approval, because hesitation disappears and action takes its place. When you stop needing validation, you stop performing and start living authentically. Approval keeps many people stuck in lives they secretly hate, because comfort feels safer than honesty. When you stop waiting for approval, you finally understand that being liked is optional, but being true is essential. The moment you choose self-trust over approval, your confidence becomes unshakable. When approval no longer matters, you stop fearing mistakes and start learning from them. You become unstoppable when your self-worth no longer depends on someone else's opinion. When you stop waiting for approval, you stop delaying your dreams for the convenience of others. Approval fades, but the regret of not trying lasts much longer. When you stop seeking validation, you begin to recognize how powerful your intuition really is. The bravest decision you can make is choosing yourself without asking permission. When you stop waiting for approval, you stop measuring your value by likes, praise, or applause. Confidence grows when you act without guaranteed support. When approval no longer controls you, your peace becomes more important than popularity. You don't need approval to start. You need courage to continue. When you stop waiting for approval, you realize that most limits were imagined, not real. The world changes when you stop asking, "What will they think?" and start asking, "What do I want?" When approval is removed from the equation, clarity finally enters the picture. You stop betraying yourself when you stop seeking validation from people who don't live your life. When you stop waiting for approval, your confidence stops being conditional. Growth requires discomfort, and approval often demands comfort, which is why they rarely coexist. When approval no longer matters, your voice becomes louder and your fear becomes quieter. You don't need everyone to agree with you to move forward. When you stop waiting for approval, you stop giving others control over your emotions. Your life begins when you decide that self-respect is more important than acceptance. When approval fades, authenticity takes its place. You gain strength when you stop asking others to confirm what you already feel inside. When you stop waiting for approval, you stop living on pause. The most successful people learned early that approval is unreliable, but self-belief is not. When you stop needing validation, you stop chasing and start attracting. Approval is temporary, but the life you build without it can last forever. When you stop waiting for approval, you stop apologizing for your ambition. You become fearless when your worth no longer needs witnesses. When approval is removed, authenticity becomes unavoidable. The moment you trust yourself, you no longer need reassurance. When you stop waiting for approval, you stop asking permission to grow. People may doubt you, but self-belief will always be louder than doubt. When approval doesn't matter, your choices finally align with your values. You don't need validation to be valid. When you stop waiting for approval, you stop living life on someone else's terms. Confidence is built when you move without consensus. When approval fades, Courage takes control. You are not here to be approved. You are here to be real. When you stop seeking permission, you unlock potential you didn't know you had. Approval creates hesitation, but self-trust creates momentum. When you stop waiting for approval, you stop fearing judgment. The strongest version of you doesn't ask to be accepted. When approval no longer matters, your focus sharpens. You grow when you stop negotiating with fear. When you stop waiting for approval, you stop dimming your light. Freedom feels scary at first, but regret feels worse. When approval's gone, purpose becomes clearer. You don't need applause to be proud of yourself. When you stop waiting for approval, you stop doubting your direction. Your power returns the moment you stop outsourcing your confidence. When approval no longer matters, progress becomes inevitable. You were never meant to live a life approved by everyone. When you stop waiting for approval, you stop hiding your potential. Courage grows when validation disappears. You don't need permission to become who you're meant to be. When approval fades, self-respect rises. You stop fearing rejection when you accept yourself fully. When you stop waiting for approval, you start leading your life instead of following opinions. Approval is optional, but authenticity is not. When you stop needing validation, you stop chasing acceptance. The moment you trust your instincts, approval loses its power. When approval no longer defines you, confidence becomes natural. You don't need agreement to move forward. When you stop waiting for approval, you stop shrinking your dreams. Independence begins where approval ends. When approval is removed, clarity appears. You gain confidence by choosing yourself repeatedly. When you stop waiting for approval, fear loses its authority. You are strongest when your self-worth is self-made. When approval doesn't matter, growth accelerates. You don't need permission to live boldly. When you stop waiting for approval, you stop limiting your future. Confidence is born when validation dies. When approval fades, purpose takes over. You move faster when you stop asking for approval. When you stop waiting for approval, you finally breathe freely. Your life begins when you stop asking others to approve it. When approval no longer controls you, success becomes personal. You don't need validation to be powerful. When you stop waiting for approval, you finally start living your own life.